Okay, let me just hear you.
Can you hear me? Ian Bonhōte. Nice to meet you guys.
Ian
we
Bonhōte.
had a lovely breakfast this morning.
Très bien. Très bien. Parfait. You are Belgian? Belgian?
Swiss French.
Swiss French. Excuse me. Okay.
No problem.
I thought so. Benoît, but that's Ian.
Congrats on the World Cup situation.
Very happy.
I know.
Yeah, he had everything covered. France, Spain,
Pam, I don't want to credit
Switzerland.
Croatian.
No, actually, that was the team I didn't support.
Yeah, he was there.
Peter Ettedgui? How do you pronounce your name?
Peter Ettedgui.
Ettedgui.
Yeah.
Okay. And there was...
Perfect.
Well,
Took me till I was
after you
about
corrected
15
me.
years old to know how to pronounce my name. So full empathy.
And okay, so Ian, you are credited as the director of the film, McQueen, and Peter, you are considered co-director and writer of this magnificent documentary. And we're also this is a particular thrill for me to be able to also introduce my longtime friend Pamela Keogh, who is a fashion writer and author. She was a contributor to Vanity Fair.
That's right.
I almost said Variety, I think.
I heard that. There's a big pause between Vanity and Fair.
I know. I just wanted to make sure.
They got to work on the marketing situation.
Nobody. No. It's just that I'm in that business. So, but everything's fixed in the edit. Nobody hears any errors on my part in the show. I don't make errors.
That's good for him.
Vanity Fair.
Oh, and last but not least, Noah is my intern, Noah Brown, who is interning. His mom and I went to summer camp together back in our younger days. And so I just want to make sure when the film is coming out.
Friday, in 2 days. Friday, 20th of July in Los
Tomorrow.
Angeles. Tomorrow. Yeah, but the 20th of July in Los Angeles and New York first in the cinemas.
Right, and then wide, as they say. And we should mention, Ian, I appreciate the fake French accent because it's going to help distinguish you from Peter. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. I've
your
worked on
fake
it
accent.
despite 21 years in the UK. It's still there. It doesn't go away.
I saw you guys. I was sitting adjacent to you at what's the name of the hotel? It's in Tribeca during the festival.
The Roxy.
The Roxy. We were all in the lounge, and I ran into Jeff Hill, who I love and adore, and he was with you guys telling me all about the film. And I saw you guys. You were in between interviews, and eye contact was made. So if I look familiar,
That's
Actually, it does.
Yeah.
I get it all the time. Anyway, I took Pamela to see your to a screening of McQueen, and we were both very moved, as she said.
Extremely.
It was a very beautiful film.
Yeah.
You don't even have to understand or feel comfortable around the subject of fashion per se to really appreciate the film.
I would almost say McQueen is beyond fashion.
I would agree with that.
But he was a creative force.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he was.
We couldn't agree more. And the other thing is, I remember vividly when Asif Kapadia's wonderful Senna film came out, and I kind of remember
Senna. That was a great film. Yeah.
I remember thinking, I don't want to go and see that. It's about Formula One racing. I'm not interested.
Right.
And then when you did go and see it, and you kind of were so immersed by the imagery and the emotions,
the archive and the beautiful archival.
Absolutely. And we felt I think good documentaries, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to take you into a world that you may never have thought about entering before.
And feel welcomed in that world.
Absolutely.
And
really,
and
what
engaged.
it is really, it's passion. It's passion and desire and talent. Raw talent. But it's desire.
And there's a very inspirational story behind it, where he comes from and where he goes against all odds. And I think that resonates very well with loads of human beings. I think we all have a sense of misfits sometime in society. And I think Lee was potentially for us one of the ultimate misfits. And he still, by the sheer will and the talent, he mastered his world.
Well, talk about his beginnings, because he grew up in a large family. In a relatively working class neighborhood of London,
East London, and one out of six, and his father was a taxi driver. His sister Janet McQueen, which is in the film, was a taxi driver, and you really need to understand that this world is not, people don't become world-renowned fashion designers.
No.
So you really have to have something special to get to that stage.
And being gay. He spoke about that. His father was a London cab driver, a Cockney.
Yeah.
And, I think eventually they completely came around to it. But, his mother was far more accepting and open and loving. And I think she made a joke like, she knew instantly what he was like. But the father, you have a Cockney cab driver, father, tough guy. It's, a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, and in the best of worlds, with very liberal parents, it's hard to discover yourself in that way and to come to terms and to be open and out about it, let alone in that type of culture, I guess,
Absolutely.
And like you said, England, even though, again, that may be shifting a little bit, culturally speaking, but
the class system is very
still as much. Let's say as 30 years ago,
so.
when Lee was young.
If you're the son of an earl or a duke, you could work at Starbucks.
You could drive a cab.
It doesn't matter. But even if you could go to Oxford, and if your father's say a cab driver,
you
still, you're never going to hear the end of it.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously in America, money is the class system in America mostly. If you have a lot of money, you're pretty well accepted.
Right. So
as we see in the current situation in the White House.
It's also it's like the your DNA. It's ancestrally passed along. This is where you are, your station.
Yeah.
So how did he transcend?
Was expected. You came from that background, as Ian was saying. The cab drivers in the family, but your aspiration was to be a plumber, or a car mechanic. Or some kind of labourer, and when Lee said I want to make clothes, his dad was sort of assuming where you go if you want to make clothes, then you have to go and sell them in Petticoat Lane in one of the street markets of the East End.
Yeah,
the idea of sort of like and I think Lee always wanted to prove himself.
Oh,
to his
absolutely.
dad. I think that was a part of the drive.
And
to get to Givenchy and say, "Dad, look at me now," was a big thing for him.
But there was a smart thing. Tailoring is of the hand. So I think one of the first things he did was he got an internship at Anderson Shepherd on Savile Row.
Uh-huh.
They make the suits for Prince Charles. Mm-hmm. So he had an ambition and a vision, even though he wasn't quite sure where it was going.
Okay.
He knew enough. If I want to learn how to tailor and make jackets and trousers, I got to go to Savile Row, and Anderson Shepherd is the top. So in some sense, even when he was like 17 or 18, when he went there, he was aiming high. So he always had ambition.
Yeah. Well, he was an outlier, though. This is not even somebody just with ambition. This is somebody clearly who really is a genius, because the rapid pace that he not only ascended through the ranks. I don't even know if he thought of it in that way. He just sort of was going to go as high and as fast as he could. Correct?
I think it's very almost right now. He passed at the tender age of 40. I think. God. It's only even right now that people look back and actually how much he's managed to achieve in 18 years. Some people have said he lived 20 lives in that short space of time. Imagine some designers lasted, and thank God they lived such long life, but Lee did everything. I think what's really interesting as well is he never realized where he was going. He had a name, but what he was, I think he knew what he was creating, but I don't think he had a complete understanding, like all of us, of the impact he was having on people and other art form. And I think it's only now, and it's sad that sometimes it's only when people have gone that we look back and, oh my God, I truly stand by what I'm going to say. I think he's slowly, people are realizing he's one of the greatest and potentially the greatest fashion designer of all time. The number of silhouettes. You calculate, you can evaluate the influence on the designer on the number of women's silhouettes he created. And, we are on the 4, 5, 6 silhouettes or everything created. So basically he was almost potentially more influential than Yves Saint Laurent, etc.
We should just, because you've said this a couple of times when we've been talking recently, and I kind of think that we know what that means. And you
I was going to say that the most for the 21st century, absolutely, absolutely.
But silhouettes,
what's a silhouette? Can you define it for people listening?
It's
the line.
But the silhouette that a designer gives the woman, and when it's an original silhouette, it changes the way that women are in society. It changes the way that
much in the sense that Coco Chanel was the first, I would say, modern couturier, because before then women were very constrained in bustles and corsets, and she loosened them up, which is why you can still wear her silhouettes today. The little jacket, the skirt, it was movement.
I understand.
But that's what you're looking at, which most Americans cannot do. No American designer can do what he did.
So is that why he wasn't?
You're looking at the line, and you're looking at the silhouette, and really you judge. A designer is judged by his shoulders. You're literally looking at the jacket, like how good is the line, and nobody could cut a jacket like he did, and he got that out of working in Savile Row.
And also, because I think Savile Row is the thing that we all naturally talk about. But what we found when we were researching and then we were doing the interviews of the film is there's this He's on Savile Row for 2 years. The full Savile Row training is 5 years. After those 2 years, he started going to other ateliers, and he learnt. He went to Koji Tatsuno. He went to work at Berman and Nathan's theatrical costumiers. He went to work in Milan for Romeo Gigli, and he also worked for Red or Dead, which was a sort of like slightly fetish streetwear company that was very big in the late 80s, early 90s in London.
Right.
And you can see how in his designs, you can see this sort of like what he's absorbed from each of those schools coming together.
He was like a sponge.
Yeah. And his lifestyle, going out and, the
street, the nightclubs,
the club culture was massive.
Out dancing all night.
People would they would go out creating their own clothing. So they would spend the day prepping themselves to go out. And that, I think that, why is the catwalk and the fashion show so important for him? Because it's very much that ultimate moment where it doesn't matter if you can't actually reproduce it and sell it. It's about getting an emotion and a reaction at that particular moment.
Yeah, we met someone. I mean, sorry, we really geek out about this, but this is such a wonderful little story that along those lines. We met someone who was very, very good friends with him while he was at St Martin's, and he used to make her clothes to go out. They used to go to this club in Soho called Substation. One night he was supposed to turn up at her flat to kind of make something for them for that evening, and he knocked on the door. She opened it. He said, "Lee, where's the material? I thought you were going to make me something." Oh, fuck, I've forgotten it. And he said, "Well, we'll find something."
Yeah.
And he wound up making her a dress out of her bed covers. And she still got it. And she said it was
a designer.
Yeah.
That you can take like a hefty bag, cut it.
Yeah.
That's someone who knows what he's doing.
Yeah. I still prefer the curtains to the hefty bag, but I understand your point is well taken. But for people listening, again, I kind of want to be their avatar, because this may come as a stunning thing, but I'm not, as fashion knowledgeable. But I've seen a lot of documentaries in the last number of years, but they're all household names, these designers in the States. But I myself have to say, I did not know about Lee McQueen. I don't know Alexander McQueen. I don't know why that was. He just did not transcend here to the average person. Or to the design world in New York or in the States?
He had started to have a few shops in the US.
He did.
So I guess that was starting to filter through, and he left us a bit young. I think the US audience was, right now, we feel confident, and I think our distributor, Blicker Strait in the US, is very confident, because the first amazing retrospective of Lee's work, Savage Beauty, was at the Met, and he attracted 500,000 people. Right. And that was one of the biggest exhibition. Even the Met themselves, we could talk to them, they couldn't believe. It became a blockbuster exhibition.
Every day you would wait. I lived 6 blocks away, and every day you'd walk past and people would wait in lines like 6 hours to get it. I actually was able to go, if I could comment on it. And I will say, I cover fashion. We'd heard the name Alexander McQueen coming over from London, and we'd heard about these nutty fashion shows, and they were crazy, and people were like, "Oh my God, Jack the Ripper!" And so we, people who followed fashion, knew of him. But I will say, when I went to that show, I wasn't expecting anything. I was like, I'll go and see the show and it'll be great. And I got in line and so on. But when I went through it, I was like, got teary-eyed. I was weeping. And it was, and what, you went from room to room to room. So one room, it was the Highland Rape. So you felt the tartan.
These were fashion shows.
This was his clothing.
Right.
his clothing at the Met.
No, I get it. Okay. But those themes that you're referring to, I just want.
They were all over in London.
You mentioned Jack the Ripper. You mentioned
Highland Rape.
They the name and the theme of the shows.
Yeah,
correct.
Yes.
These were during Fashion Week. His show, right?
In London Fashion Week. Yeah.
And they were just beyond just. I mean, I've seen lots of these presentations, and they're nothing like what was in your film. Again, called, by the way, McQueen. These were such cinematic, spectacular.
They were experiences. It was like going to a Broadway show.
Yes,
I would say.
Yes, right. It was.
But if I could just finish what I wanted, so I went to the show, and every room it was the Highland or the different themes, and I got teary-eyed, and I wasn't expecting anything. I thought, I'll go see the show and it'll be great, and I literally got. Yeah. And what I realized is we don't have this talent in America. What America does best is sportswear. We do jeans. A polo shirt, Ralph Lauren type stuff, athletic.
Casual, leisure wear.
That is really what America invented. So we don't have the couture, the level. what he did coming at with like, you know, and I looked at it, was material and a needle and a thread. And there was something about it. It was a visceral. You felt it. And you felt his talent. You felt his desire. It was sexy. It was depressing. It was lonely. It was, and you're just looking at mannequins. And it was like, God Almighty.
If I may jump about the you comment about America. I think with haute couture and high fashion, men or women, there's a commitment in getting dressed. And I think right now with our society, we need to be fast, etc. I like my clothing, what I'm wearing today. You have to carry yourself a certain way. I can't start running. I've got shorts, but they, you know, inspired by North African shorts from Givenchy, and they're not. You've got to have a commitment. I think in the US, people want to be able to you know, clothing has to be part of their life, and potentially it's a little bit more of that in Europe. You need to adapt your life to your clothing slightly. And I completely understand that it put off people, but it's also, you know, when you put certain shirt, if you button up to the top and the way it carries
constricting. It's constricting. You have to get used to that. Yes.
Helps you carry yourself and project an imagery of yourself, which some people embrace and some not.
No, I always marvel at people who obviously present. You know,
I totally judge a man by his shoes. Absolutely. So yeah,
thank God I put on my shoes today.
Socks and watches. That's how you know a man.
So glad I put on my good shoes today.
It's interesting though what you were saying, because you know, when he first came to America, you know, he did an interview in which he sort of like said, you know, how much he loved the energy of New York. This is sort of around 95.
Oh, I'm sure he did. He
loved the energy of New York, but he said, you know, but Americans are they can be quite conservative in their dress sense, and I'm going to come and shake things up.
Yeah.
I think that's
because
he liked to do that.
You go to London, you know, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe they're wearing that. It's, Americans are a bit more, you know. But,
It's funny because I mean, I think of it kind of almost the opposite, but I'm thinking maybe in a different way, because, you know, he didn't grow up in the punk era. He was after that, right? I mean,
no, but there was a lot of night clubbing. It was like
it
wasn't punk, but it was maybe the 5 years after, 10 years. But it was definitely a lot of nightclub era, and like Kate Moss was going to the club, and they were all great outfits. And
punk never left England, even if it's not in exactly. It's an attitude. I think, you know. I think what we were saying about that structure of society, and a lot of people have to rebel massively towards it. So in England, people tend to go into the extremes, you know.
Yeah.
And the creatives overall, I would say, you know, most of the rock stars, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, except Mick Jagger, you know, they were all from the lower classes pushing up. So
sure. McQueen is directed by Ian Bonhōte and co-directed and written by Peter Ettedgui.
But we very much made the film together. So
but I understand, I should just say it's a collaborative effort. What goes into writing, to shift gears just for a second, is that like something that you're doing during the editing phase, where you have the content, you have the archive, and now you have to kind of write a script so you know how to edit the film and present?
It's interesting because I'm still asking myself what that question is.
Well, I know a couple of writers for documentaries, and you know, so it's an interesting.
I kind of like fell into it a few years back, and I've done 2 or 3 now as a writer, and it's differed. What I've done has differed on each of those. But I think the first time I really thought how extraordinary this medium could be was on a film called Listen to Me, Marlon,
which is one of my favorites from a couple of years back. I love that.
Thank you.
I love that documentary
about Marlon Brando.
It was on Showtime, I believe.
That was Showtime, yeah. And we had this extraordinary cache of audio archive, and you know, you just started to think, God, it's you know, sometimes the structures and conventions of dramatic fiction filmmaking and writing can be, you know, they can be a bit boring, frankly. Whereas, you know, what was great about Listen to Me, Marlon, where I was present every single day in the edit, working with the director Stephen Riley, we were literally just sort of like improvising the sequences. We had a kind of like a roadmap, and you know, it was kind of like writing onto the timeline of the edit, and that was just thrilling to be a part of. I think with this one, I mean, we started off. We had a sort of exchange, really, of Ian coming in with visual ideas, and I was kind of feeding in ideas about the structure of the piece, and very, very soon we sort of like decided that we were going to tell the story through a handful of fashion shows. At least those were going to be the main anchor points of the whole narrative.
Good idea. I'm endorsing that.
Well,
it worked out real well.
He always said, you know, if you want to know me, look at my work. And we thought, well, we'll take you at your word, Lee.
And I know that now that you bring that particular point of it's about the work, it's not. This film also avoids all tawdriness, all tabloid aspects, which it could easily have done. In fact, I think you got family interviews, which were probably very difficult to figure out. But you were able to do that based on
very
that.
Generous.
Yeah, because I'm sure there were other projects pitched which would have made more out of his lifestyle and his friends and the club life you mentioned, Pamela, and his being gay and then ultimately,
for a
if I'm not
designer,
spoiling,
he wasn't. I mean,
he wasn't. They were all that way.
Bad.
No, it's very true. But he did die. He his best friend committed suicide.
Izzy Blow, yeah.
And then he ultimately did, not to give away too much, but that should be, it is a fact.
What I loved about your documentary is you showed his talent. You walked out of there and you saw why he mattered, and you missed him. I was like, God, I wish he could have been around to give us more.
Yeah.
You saw his unhappiness, which as an American, we had no sense. We didn't get that at all. We just didn't make it over here. And then you saw, like, he was a son. He was a brother. You saw how much his family loved him, and I appreciated that.
And he loved them as well.
Right,
he was
but
very close to them.
I appreciated that because he was very close to his mother, and he was proud of where he came from, and he was a McQueen, and they were Scottish, and his dad was and I like that because you humanized him, because I think so many, especially fashion designers, they act like Karl Lagerfeld. He's like from Mount Olympus. He has no mother, no sibling. He remembers nothing from the past. So there's a lot of mythology that goes on with those designers, and I really liked how you humanized him. So.
Yeah.
We really try to avoid to create an icon. I think he
was already an icon.
He is an icon.
But we want
the
to
film.
to
you
avoid that angle.
You humanized him.
Make him
And I think to understand some of the issues that led to his tragic death, I think you really need to understand that those issues are shared by every human being. We have all those fragilities within us, the mental health issues, etc. And we Peter and I really feel that, you mentioned some you've got very famous people everywhere, but everyone, we are all humans. And I think that's how, as filmmakers, you just can touch an audience, because you need to strip away and just bring back what exactly every day to day, blue collar, upper class, wherever you are, you just have got the same potential struggles.
Nicely put. Nice place to kind of leave it. I'm just going to remind people that McQueen opens in New York and LA Friday, July
20th.
Thank you. And then it'll go wide. So check your local listings, if there is such a thing anymore. Go online and Google McQueen, the documentary, and we'll keep people abreast of that. Pamela, how can people find your writing? And
Google me, like everyone else. I don't know. I'm on Vanity Fair. But if I could say a final thing to your audience, I would say, go see this documentary. I can't put it strongly enough. You get a sense of his genius, his talent, his sorrow, his joys. Mm-hmm. I felt like I spent time with him, and I felt very fortunate to be in the audience. So that's what I would say.
Thank you.
How much do we owe you?
Well, we'll hopefully do this.
Okay,
guys. We'll hopefully do this all again with the next projects. And,
thank you. Very nice meeting you all.